Right, we're now moving to motion 2, ethnicity pay gap, and the mover of the motion is myself, Carol Sewell. Speaking on motion 2, ethnicity pay gap. Conference, Unison believes it's time for a serious conversation about racism and the ethnicity pay gap and make this a priority campaign for the Race Relations Committee and our sister unions. Unison believes that the ethnicity pay gap is a major cause in in-work poverty experienced by Black workers and the cause of severe intergenerational inequality in Black communities. The EPG is as high as 23.8% in London, with huge regional variations across the UK. The introduction of this important measure is needed to identify the disparities within the workforce and the forces employers to be accountable. Unison Black workers are committed to addressing issues on racial equality and held an ethnicity pay gap webinar on the 12th of January 2022. The event comes as part of the continued commitment by Unison to address issues relative to racial equality. The union's campaign around the issue of the ethnicity pay gap started last September, centering on making ethnicity pay gap reporting mandatory, in partnership with Diane Grayson's Ethnicity Pay Gap UK campaign. The ethnicity pay gap was also debated in Parliament in September, following an e-petition from 130,000 signatures in the House of Lords in October 21. At the event, Diane Grayson talked about what steps we need to take to ensure the ethnicity pay gap becomes a thing of the past, as well as some of the difficulties of producing robust data on ethnicity pay gaps within companies and how to address these difficulties. Lord Boateng was also on the panel, talked about how the ethnicity pay gap can be addressed within Parliament and the role of our legislators need to take. Gloria Mills, Unison's National Secretary, talked about Union's past and future role in campaigning for mandatory pay gap reporting. The work has continued, and the next stage of the campaign that will require organisations to provide an action plan to set out what they will do to close its ethnicity pay gap. Conference, the ethnicity pay gap should not be confused with the issue of equal pay that shows the difference of average hours rates of pay between Black and non-Black employees in organisations, expressed as a percentage of average non-Black earnings. The TUC and the ONS estimates that the UK pay gap is currently 2.3%, with wide variations across different regions in the UK. They estimate London to have a pay gap of 23.8%. This gap is estimated by the Resolution Foundation to cost 1.9 million Black workers 3.2 billion in lost wages in 2018. The ethnicity pay gap is created by occupational segregation, whereby Black workers are left in sectors with limited career and salary prospects and of insecure contracts. They disproportionately make up workers on 0 hours contracts and in insecure employment, which 1 in 8 employees in insecure work, while the national average is 1 in 17. Even where there is not a case, they are left to navigate racism in their work, limiting the scope to demonstrate their competence and therefore career and salary progression. NHS workers' data suggests that Black staff are overrepresented in the lower pay bands and increasingly underrepresented in higher grades. In England, figures from 2019 show that 27% of the workforce are Black, Asian, Chinese, mixed or other groups, but they make up 7% of senior managers' grades. The chair of the Women and Equalities Committee, Right Honourable Caroline Noakes MP, said, The government's failure to move forward on ethnicity pay gap reporting is perplexing. We already have the systems and structures in place to start reporting on the ethnicity pay gap, as well as a clear impetus tackling inequality benefits not only marginalising groups, but the whole economy. The government has no excuse, as that is lacking, it seems, is the will and intention of the current administration. She further went on to say, the government may bold promises to level up geographically. Time and again, it proves itself to be blind to the importance of levelling up within our communities and addressing long-standing disparities along the lines of protected characteristics. By taking that small step, the government would demonstrate its commitment to working with businesses to reduce inequality. Action must be taken to tackle the pay gap. It causes and it affects. Closing the ethnicity pay gap would not only support greater social and economic equality, but it would also boost UK GDP by 24 billion annually, according to the report by the CBI. The report of the Commission of Race and Ethnic Disparities published in 2021 is key for Unison's demands. In any communication to the media or parliamentarians, please make sure you're stressing the following 5 key points. The report of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities recommends that all employees that choose to publish their ethnicity pay figures should publish a diagnosis and action plan to lay out the reasons for and the strategy to improve any disparities. This can be used as a key hook for the Race Relations Committee in any communication to media or engaging with parliamentarians. The Ethnicity Pay Gap reporting by the Women and Equalities Committee is also key to Unison's task. In this, they recognise the need for mandatory ethnicity reporting and recommend the government puts this into legislation in the near future. The Equality and Human Rights Commission has conducted research that shows women, people from ethnic minorities and disabled people experience pay gaps because of barriers to accessing work and career progression. The number of employers publishing their ethnicity pay gap has increased from 11% in 2018 to 19% in 2021. This is resulting in many from ethnic minority groups remaining at the bottom of organisations' hierarchies. We need that to be stepped up. We are therefore calling for mandatory ethnicity pay gap reporting, which will allow employers to get a deeper understanding of the ethnicity disparities within their workplace and will allow for action planning to be put in place to solve this issue. Conference, putting mandatory ethnicity pay gap reporting in place now is beneficial to the government and wider society in that will progress many lives for people from minoritised ethnic backgrounds. The objectives are cross-party support for mandatory ethnicity pay gap reporting, manifesto commitment from the Labour Party, change in law, but we cannot wait for that to take place from this government. Unison will be holding a parliamentary drop-in in the pledge sign-up, taking place on the 24th of May at the House of Parliament, holding a fringe meeting at the Unison National Delegate Conference called Levelling Up, tackling racial disparities in June 2022 to build on the campaign. Conference. Unions black workers are committing to addressing issues on racial equality and believe this campaign must be the priority for the Race Relations Committee and action plans carries out set in this motion. I move. Can I next have the second of motion, Ostor?
Good afternoon, Chair and Conference. My name is Hadi Nakwi. I'm from USDOR. I'm a first-time delegate and a first-time speaker. On behalf of USDOR, we are very happy to second Unison's motion calling for the immediate action to end the ethnicity pay gap. To be honest, before being asked to second this motion, I wasn't aware of the true scale and extent of the pay gap in the UK. And I have no doubt this is how employers and government would like to keep it. Research done by my own union has shown that time and time again, in terms of pay, Black workers are the hardest hit. Most recently, a cost of living survey was conducted by USDOR in January of this year, and what it showed was that a third of Black members are claiming one or more elements of in-work social security, compared to less than a quarter of their white counterparts. And we're also more likely to be struggling to make ends meet, with over a third of Black members missing rent and mortgage payments compared to a fifth of their white workers. We are more likely to have relied upon unsecured borrowing such as credit cards and payday loans to pay everyday bills. And we're almost twice as likely to have opted out of our workplace pension scheme. This isn't because we aren't as good at balancing the books as our white colleagues. It isn't because we're reckless with our money, or because we are more likely to take financial risks. It is because we are more likely to find ourselves in lower paying jobs, in low paying sectors of the economy, in less secure employment with less access to training and promotion. This shows that this is a structural issue that needs to be addressed and tackled now. And we've seen it in the past when it comes to things such as study after study showing two identical CVs being sent for the same job, one with an ethnic sounding name and another with an English sounding name. And the person being called to the interview is an English sounding name. These are just examples that we've seen time and time again. And the reason why that is that this is a structural issue and needs to be addressed and tackled now so that we can have good provisions for the future. And this is the reason why is that, as the motion makes clear, because of the race discrimination in our economy, it's in our labor markets, it's in our workplace. And we're asking employers to report on the pay gap clearly isn't working. This must be legally bound to do so. And conference, it's for this reason we please ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Can I have the speaker of the next motion, which is PCS?
Okay. Greetings, Chair. PCS, Zita Holborn. I'm speaking in support of motion 2, not on the next motion, Chair. 3/4 of Black workers earn less than white workers doing the same job and are more likely to be passed over for pay rises. We're blocked from promotion and progression and expected to accept a pay cut in pay if we break through those barriers. It's not a case of just a glass ceiling that we're facing, but that ceiling is barricaded if you're Black. Black women face a double whammy due to the existing gender pay gap also. We commend the work done by Equilibrium Mediation Consultancy, which has already been mentioned in this debate, including their work on the ethnicity pay gap and the Ethnicity Pay Gap Day. A report they produced identified pay inequality ranging from £3,000 to £10,000. And only 19% of employers in the UK reported on ethnicity in pay in 2021. We need all employers to report, and for those who are guilty, to be named, shamed, and face penalties. But we also need to tackle precarious work, outsourcing, privatisation, 2- and 3-tier workforces, pay freezes, the impact on Black workers of over 10 years of austerity, of the pandemic, and of the cost of living crisis now, which have also contributed to this pay gap because of the knock-on impacts. As a union movement, this issue must be given the same prominence and attention as the gender pay gap. We must ensure that there's no free pass to abuse Black workers in this way, and that we hold employers to account through our collective bargaining and through campaigning and negotiating, which is why the recommendations in this motion for action are crucial. This issue impacts not just on us now as individual workers, but on our families, on our communities, and on the next generation. And if we are to be empowered and have equity economically, The ethnicity pay gap must be closed shut for good. Please support this motion.
Thank you. Can I have the next speaker on the motion, ethnicity pay gap, RMT?
On this motion, in my first time attendee at this conference. I'm a first time attendee at this conference. My name is Wale Gombiadi from the RMT. As has been said by many of the speakers earlier, this isn't something that is a small matter that should be just pushed to the side as the government are trying to do it. The fact that it was part of the government's manifesto's pledge in 2017, and they saw it as such a big matter to be talking about, and then it has now been pushed under the carpet, is quite concerning, especially when you consider the language of it being initially proposed as being something that will be mandatory, and now something that wants to be that the government wish to put forward as something that would be a guidance. We all know that if there's discussions that are not held with companies and businesses being held to account, then we'll find ourselves in a situation where there will be tick box exercises of conversations taking place and no action actually taking place. It's very important that this motion is passed through, because when we look at the issues that happen with the problems that members have from ethnic minority backgrounds in terms of their pay, in terms of doing the same jobs as those from non-ethnic minority backgrounds, the various studies and the various bits of information that we have available to us have all shown that we are very much on the underbelly when it comes to that. We are treated very badly in terms of pay. And it's a time also of having honest conversations, because it's not a matter of trying to shy away from something. Once you've identified the problem is there, it's then about attending to that problem and trying to find solutions for it. Much work has been done on the gender pay gap. There is still much work to be done. But if it's not recognised that this also needs to be done as a mandatory basis, with action being done, with action being enforced to be done, then we will find ourselves in a situation where conversations happen, talk is happening, but no action is following. So I urge all of our colleagues here and all of our delegates to support this motion and to pass this motion on. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. As there's no further speakers, we go straight to the vote.